All right, we are live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we got lots to talk about in our live stream. We're going to the latest DeFi hack that just happened for $160 million and what you need to understand about this. We're going to look at a lot of other news updates that have happened in the space since yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You're going to find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to take a quick look at the crypto markets, answer some of your questions, and a whole lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step by step start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, so we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Cody, Adele, Technically Automatic Beats, Above Realty, MyFootball, Alden, Jay Lee, Theek. I hope I'm saying that right. All right, so let's jump into this. So we have another DeFi exploit happening in the ecosystem that I want to talk about today. Not that I love talking about things getting hacked out there in the wild, but this is a critical thing that people have to understand. We actually saw a video yesterday, or an update yesterday, about the replay attacks that were happening on the Ethereum fork. Okay, definitely go check that out if you haven't already. And we have another instance today of crypto market maker Wintermute hacked for over $160 million. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull this up. Let me find my screen share button here. So crypto market maker Wintermute hacked for $160 million, and their OTC services are unaffected. So if you don't know who Wintermute is a market making firm. So it was a market maker, if you're not familiar with what that is. So basically, if you go use any sort of DeFi, or not necessarily DeFi, this can be also in traditional finance. It could be on centralized cryptocurrency exchanges. Basically, people who help provide liquidity so that other people can use financial services. That's you're making a market. So let's say you go to a cryptocurrency exchange and you want to trade tokens. Well, somebody's got to buy them from you. Somebody's got to if you want to do the opposite, then somebody has to sell them to you. Okay. And of course, you might have organic activity from users on there, but most of the time you need the help of somebody else to help, add liquidity to those markets. That's what a market maker is. They make a market from scratch. So anyways, they have multiple sort of arms of their operation. Okay, they have a DeFi arm. They have an OTC arm, which just stands for over the counter, sort of over the counter trades. Okay. So basically, they lost $160 million. We'll check out the tweet here in a minute, saying that that they are currently solvent. Okay, that's one thing that I think a lot of people are worried about. Seeing a lot of the insolvency issues happen with other players in the space that have had contagion risk. That's the whole scary part here. Is every time we see somebody big in the space blow up, like there's fears that they borrowed money from somebody else and then can't pay it back, and then that person might even have insolvency issues for whoever they're borrowing money from. The space can get kind of incestuous in that way, for lack of a better term. So that there does not seem to be any solvency issues as we can tell from their public statements. So sorry, I clicked the wrong link here. So this is the second time we've seen a mishap. Basically, they sent $15 million worth of Optimism tokens to the wrong address earlier this year. The tokens were eventually returned by the recipient. We're currently, they are treating the hack as a white hat hack, okay, until they can be proven otherwise. Now we'll have to wait and see. It's kind of an optimistic stance in my opinion, but basically talking about that they have not got to the bottom of exactly who did this, and have tried to be in communication with the attacker, but have not been able to do that just yet. But if in doubt, when in doubt right now, they're going to treat this as a white hat instance until they are proven otherwise. They're trying to get in touch with the attacker to recover the funds. Now we can still see the funds on chain. Okay, so we don't have any final closure on this. Let's just look here. we can see part of the funds. Okay, doesn't look like it's all contained in one wallet, but yeah, you can see a cool, basically 7,000 ether just chilling here in this wallet. Right now it's close to $10 million. Okay, so if you are an on-chain sleuth and want to try to help, recover some of these funds, you can definitely go check out that address. There's a lot there's a lot to learn by analyzing these transactions and where they go. Because at the end of the day, I talk about this a lot on my channel, but we have some pretty sophisticated actors in the space who are able to essentially, track down what happens with stolen funds. Because, if anybody who's ever watched this video ever just feels a slight temptation to go find a big old pot of money on the blockchain and try to hack those smart contracts, you've got a real problem on your hands if you actually pull that off. Okay. I talk about hacking quite a bit on my channel and put out some videos lately on how to actually hack smart contracts. But my whole intention with those is so that you can do that in a white hat way. What does that mean? The white hat essentially is using those powers for, positive influence rather than than using them for nefarious purposes, basically using the powers for good, not for evil. So essentially what that means is that presupposes the notion that there are going to be bad guys out there and there's nothing you can really do about that long term. It's just like human nature. That's not going to go away. And so if you can protect people against that type of thing, or even yourself, you're incredibly valuable. So if you can see things that could be exploited, you can be a white hat in that way. And then, basically tell the person and help disclose that in order to, recover the funds. We've seen, instances in the case where sometimes people just take money and hold it on to themselves and then give it back as soon as, the thing is, once they're in communication, especially if they see that somebody else is already attacking it. We've seen that in the past where essentially somebody uncovers an exploit where, let's say, you repeat the exploit over and over and over again and just keeps giving you more money. We've seen situations where white hacks will get in and then just drain it for themselves and then give it back. Now that also is a gray area. Okay, I'm not telling you should do that necessarily, but it's sort of like a self-defense scenario. If you walk upon a violent situation, that can still be a gray area, but anyways, so there's that. There's the other thing of basically protecting your own smart contracts where they go in the network and, adding those robust security measures, which can just help you, get prevented from this type of thing. So there's all kinds of upside to learning good security auditing best practices that can keep these types of things from happening. So anyways, the whole point I was making though is that's why you should learn the vulnerabilities inside of smart contracts, because there's a huge benefit to doing that. But if you try to take, money, there's a lot of sophisticated actors in the space who can track you down. Because don't forget, you're on a blockchain where all the transactions are public, okay? And we can essentially see the wallet, and anytime, funds move in and out of this wallet, we can get notifications about it. And so let's think about it. If you take that money, what are you going to do with it? Well, you can either try to cash out on a cryptocurrency exchange of some kind and then use one that converts it to fiat currency and then connects it to a bank account. Well, the problem is you've got a lot of you have to KYC in many cases. Now you could steal somebody's identity on the dark web, blah, 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 commit identity theft, but you still have to link that to a bank account. It's still incredibly hard to do. Okay. Another option is that essentially, you try to spend the money in crypto. All right. You could do money laundering. You could do all this type of stuff, but then you're adding a significant amount of complexity to that as well, and a significant amount of failure points. Okay. You could try to wash it through a privacy solution like Tornado Cash. But even then, we've got a significant amount of, players in the space that are even able to, link some of those identities with Tornado Cash. We'll talk about some of that here in a minute. So anyways, the moral of the story is, lest you feel tempted to take a lot of money out of a contract like this, you have a really hard time getting away with it. I'm not saying you never would, but vast majority of people would not. And honestly, I would say a majority of hackers in the space are not as smart as you think they are. like they are in one sense that they figured out how to do something, but they're not like tactically smart. Like they're not tactically smart in how to get away with something. They're basically like they've got the brain power to figure out how to break something, but not how to like, you know, like I don't know. They don't really have they don't have the smarts to take that idea all the way. Like you're not thinking multiple steps ahead. That's what I mean by tactical. You're not thinking like a chess player of like all the steps ahead. You're thinking about how do I get this little one thing in front of me and crack that and open it. You're not necessarily thinking about all the consequences. So some of them are just going to get found out for that reason alone. Now let's look at speaking of connecting. Let's see here. I just had a link on my screen here and it went away. I was saying, speaking of Tornado Cash, so that's been a big source of drama this entire year. It's basically a crypto privacy solution or a mixer, Tornado Cash, where essentially you can try to deposit funds into it, all right, and try to withdraw it from a new address so that it unlinks your identity. Well, I've been, that was the source of the sanctions earlier this year, which caused a lot of drama in the space. Okay, let me just pull it up here. So one of the reasons that they, sorry, I'm trying to pull up this link. So one of the reasons that they essentially have been under so much scrutiny is because that they've been used many cases after these exploits happen. So basically people steal money, they send it to Tornado Cash to try to, deposit funds into it and withdraw it to a new address so that it gets really hard to link the addresses that they took the money from with the new addresses that they have washed those funds to. So essentially, I've talked plenty of times after these exploits happen. If you've been watching this channel, you've seen this, but if not, then maybe this will be new to you. There are ways to essentially get a pretty good guess on linking those two wallets. We've seen, I've heard rumors in the space that some really advanced analytics firms like Chainalysis have kind of cracked the code on most Tornado deposits and withdrawals. But I've also seen a tool like this, okay, that just I became aware of today. I think this is brand new. Basically called Tornado. It's like Tornado Cash or Tornado. People ask me all the time, why do I say tornado, not tornado? I say tornado because I'm from the United States. If I saw a big thing, big storm swirling around off in the horizon, I would call that a tornado. The reason I call it Tornado Cash is because of listening to the creators of Tornado Cash call it Tornado Cash. That's why I call it that. Anyways, Tornadoxed is the name of this. So it's like Tornado Cash, and then doxed like you reveal someone's identity. So basically what this does is it like is an analytics tool powered by the new Dune Analytics API that like analyzes Tornado deposits and withdrawals. So essentially you can see this sort of example here. All right, so you just paste in an address or an ENS name, and then what it does is it uses their algorithm to see if they can easily link the depositing wallet to the withdrawing wallet. So we'll tell you if the algorithm is able to link these two things, because there's certain patterns that are not that hard to recognize, okay? And you can see sort of the guesses here. All right. And so they give you recommendations on what to do to try to preserve some of that privacy, like withdrawing to a different address, across multiple addresses, using a relayer to withdraw to a fresh address, waiting a few days, withdrawing at a different time. But in violation of some of these things, you can see some pretty easy, low-hanging fruit where they could just, link the wallets. So if you're wondering if you've ever used this before and you're wondering whether your wallet is easily found out, you can find out there. It sort of reminds me of that website, like Have I Been Pwned? But that's a completely different use case. That's if basically hackers have compromised your password in any way. If you've been pwned in crypto and somebody got your private key, you're going to know because all your money is going to be gone. Somebody says, trying to set the value of a transaction from my front end and having trouble getting it to parse correctly. Any advice? So I'm not sure what library, I'm not sure how you're trying to add the value to that transaction metadata. If you're just using if you're using like Ethers.js or Web3.js, and you're just passing in like the value property, or value like key, you want to make sure that you're actually doing that. We'll make sure you're parsing it to like the way value. You might be, if you're throwing in like a decimal, that's not going to work with floating point numbers. So you got to be integers. So that's why you convert it to way. I don't know if you are like passing in the wrong data type. If it requires like a string type, it might, depending on the library you're using, if you're putting in a floating point number or integer, you might have to coerce it to a string first. Somebody says scammer use like 1x1 poker game to clean money too. They do all kinds of stuff. I mean, they'll trade with themselves on crypto. They'll buy their own NFTs. They'll use 1x1 poker games. Yeah, stuff like that. All right, so let's look at a couple other things that that came up that I want to talk about here. So one is what's going on with Infura. Okay, so if you're not familiar with what Infura it's one of the biggest decentralized infrastructure providers in the space, particularly around Ethereum. Okay, so basically, Infura is talking about how they have plans to completely decentralize their infrastructure, and I'm going to talk about what this is and why it's a good thing. So basically, let's talk about the problem that Infura solves in the first place. So, if you're going to use a blockchain and you connect to a blockchain, then how do you connect to that network? Well, you connect to a unique node in that network. Because again, the blockchain is just a peer-to-peer network of nodes that all talk to one another, okay? And if you use the blockchain in any way, each of those nodes is just a computer, and you need to connect to that computer so that you have access to the entire network, okay? So you got a couple options. You could run your own node, all right, which most people are just not going to do, all right, or you could connect to somebody else's node, all right, and that's really what Infura does. They are essentially a blockchain node as a service. That's their primary business model, okay, and if for example, if you go connect with your MetaMask account and you just connect to the Ethereum mainnet, all right, so under the hood, you're connecting to an Infura node by default because Infura and MetaMask are under the same umbrella of, companies. So we've seen we've seen the desire to not be so heavily reliant upon that particular type of infrastructure. Because at the end of the day, we want the Web3 space to be as decentralized as possible. And, Infura essentially hosts the nodes, and they host a lot of nodes, okay? And, let's say there's a failure in that particular part of the ecosystem, then that's a huge, failure point because they're running so much infrastructure in a centralized way. And we've known this for a long time, okay? But now we're talking about the effort to decentralize Infura. So basically, we're now proud to announce Infura's plans to launch a new decentralized infrastructure network. So Infura launched in 2016 with one mission: to make it easy for Web3 developers to access Ethereum and build the future they want to live in. Infura was the first blockchain API service of its kind. So over the past 6 years, they've created a lot of different things, not just for Ethereum, basically for Filecoin, Arbitrum. You can see all this stuff on the list, right? And belabor everything here, but Anyways, Infura's infrastructure backend for Web3 has been battle-tested with years of experience managing high-throughput requests for thousands of customers. It's actually pretty impressive, okay? I mean, Infura has lasted through 2 major crypto bubbles and hype, cycles. When you're talking about stress testing software systems, you have to put it under extreme load. It's definitely been under extreme load many times, and has done really, really well. And has lasted for a very long time. So, but as a single service provider, it will never be as powerful as a decentralized network of operators. So this is why I want to be part of launching a new decentralized infrastructure protocol to strengthen the foundation of Web3 with our expertise and collaborative spirit. Okay, so we're calling all infrastructure providers who want to be part of the decentralized future. Basically, qualified infrastructure providers can now apply for early access to the program to be a test operator. So honestly, if you have experience operating decentralized infrastructure, this could be a good opportunity for you. So basically, you need to have that experience of running infrastructure. You need to be able to participate and provide feedback, and then interested in decentralizing blockchain API access. Okay. So let's see what the monetary incentives are for this type of thing. But yeah, this is definitely a good thing in my opinion. It's cool to see Infura, leading the charge in this way, because they're not the only pebble on the beach when it comes to node providers. So it'd be interesting to see what the answer is from some of their competitors in this space. But yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction. So another thing that came up that's pretty interesting is Coinbase partnering with ENS Domains to create Coinbase ID usernames. Okay, so if you're not familiar with what ENS is, it's the Ethereum name service. Okay, so if you've been on Twitter or anywhere in the crypto space, and you've seen people with like the .eth names, like let's say your name is, Jim or something, right? Like if you see Jim.eth, that's the Ethereum name service. So basically this is buying a human readable name that ends in .eth and using it, resolving it to a blockchain address. So like, your crypto address is this kind of hard to read thing. Like if I told you to send me cryptocurrency and I just like verbally spelled out my crypto wallet, like you're not going to remember that. You're not going to be able to just enter it into your phone. But if I said, hey, send it to Jim.eth, you know exactly how to send that money, right? So basically it's like creating a domain name for your crypto wallet. Okay. And it's one of the first, if not the first, protocols in the entire space to do that. And obviously unstoppable domains and all that type of stuff come out now, but I believe ENS was, if they weren't the first, they were definitely one of the first. I've known about them for quite some time now. I've had my own ENS name for quite some time now. So anyways, ENS also came out with the ability to have subdomains. So basically, like you could register ENS names and now have a subdomain associated with it. And now Coinbase is partnering with ENS to essentially create that for their customers. So you can have a .cb.id. So similar type of thing, you want to send money to your Coinbase account, you could essentially just create a username for that Coinbase. So let's say your Coinbase account is now Jim. Okay, jim.cb.id could be your username, and that's how you could receive funds to that account. Okay, and that would give you a human readable name for your Coinbase account, which would be pretty big deal as well. All right, it's a big for adoption for Web3, because as we sort of abstract away all the really hard to read stuff and make it more user friendly, that's a big step in the right direction for Web3. And I think this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand is like as Web3 gets better, like a lot of the stuff that we do now, you're not gonna have to do in the future. Okay, like you're not gonna have to interact with all these low I don't say low level because that's not the right term. Low level typically means when you're like interacting with a computer system at a low level, but like doing all this stuff that like humans don't normally do in other, more advanced settings. So, the fact that you're like copying and pasting like crypto addresses that humans can't read into your wallet and sending transactions, like that's probably not going to be the predominant way that people interact with, crypto. It's sort of like, it would be like being in the early days of the internet and then pasting in an IP address to visit a website. That's not really what we do when we use the internet. Okay. The internet has evolved, gotten so much better. TCP/IP and then DNS, and gluing those two things together. You go to google.com and it resolves to the servers behind the scenes, and you don't ever have to know really what an IP address is at the end user. In fact, most people use the internet don't even know what an IP address is. Or if they saw one, they wouldn't necessarily know what it is. So same type of thing, like as we have a bit better components, then it will be less, nerdy, I would say, to use crypto in this way. So another thing to think about is as the space evolves, like there's potential futures where you don't even really have the awareness that you're using the blockchain behind the scenes. Okay. I really think that there's a lot of financial use cases where, you could basically create a crypto version of what the end user is used to now and create a user experience that looks very seamless to what the user uses now. And then basically, they don't have to know they're using crypto. And, it's not like this, oh, I'm using this crypto app. It's like, no, I'm just using a financial application that I'm used to using, and that runs off crypto in the background. I think it's a pretty, excuse me, keep having to clear my throat here. I think it's a pretty low-hanging fruit for that type of thing. It's just a savings and lending app, basically making a bank's 3.0. Like online banking, basically having a way where you transfer money into your account, and then, you could earn high yield on that in the background. Okay. Now I realize there's some risky yield out there in crypto. We've seen that, blow up in our faces, especially this year. But I'm not, I think that's a short-term thing. And since I don't think it's a deal breaker long-term, the fact that we can have like a baseline yield with, ETH staking, all right, and other things like that creates an environment where that can influence other yields in the space. Then we can actually create some competitive yield in crypto that could rival other, financial products, especially if we go back to a lower rate environment. Okay. So I think that's definitely a possibility for the future. And that could be a case where the user doesn't have to know that they're using crypto. Okay. That's essentially what, I could definitely see Coinbase coming out with something like this where, all of Coinbase's customers now have this new financial product where it's just a bank. It's kind of what Coinbase is now. So it's just waiting for essentially somebody like Bank of America, to just turn that on in the background. I know that's kind of like not what people who are really passionate about crypto, want to hear necessarily, because it's like sort of like, be your own bank, bank the unbanked, which honestly, some of those sort of marketing terms are not the best. Like, who wants to really be their own bank? Not many people. Maybe some nerds do, but like vast majority of people want the convenience of a bank. So if we can make better banks, I think that's a huge value proposition of DeFi in a way that the user does not have to know that they're using crypto. So it says hard hat or what to start studying, to stop hacking in blockchain. Yes, I would highly recommend learning hard hat. Is there any good implementation in the crypto world for physical assets based loans like mortgages? I've seen some projects like this. Now, here's the thing, like, there's two things about that. Like, there's there's an inherent problem with, essentially connecting the physical world with the crypto world, because there's always going to be a trust assumption whenever you're representing something of physical value on a blockchain itself. Okay. But you do get this added benefit of transparency. So let's say that you had a crypto implementation of a loan that was backed by physical assets. Let's say you did with gold or something like that, or something that you had really, where you could easily appraise the value of the backing, right? You'd still have to have this trust assumption that you actually had all that, gold. Okay. So, of course, people could audit it. You could have independent third-party auditors come and, like, write that information into the chain. You could do it with oracles, blah, 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 blah. But there's still, like, this trust assumption. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, that's honestly not the biggest problem. Like that part's kind of easy from a technical implementation. The real hard part is the regulation. Okay, so getting around regulations or becoming compliant so that you can actually do that type of thing on a blockchain is the hard part. Okay, so there's lots of stuff that's pretty easy to do with crypto technology. Like, you want to trade stocks on a blockchain, it's not that hard, right? You want to sell houses on a blockchain, it's not that hard. The real hard part is not going to jail, put it that way. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. Good, great questions. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps us videos out so the more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fascinated with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? You can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find those free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. Someone's asked me before about how to get started with hacking. I've got some videos there on how to start hacking smart contracts. If you like those videos, you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can show you a master blockchain step-by-step start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers, land their first blockchain job in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks.